Welcome everyone to the Town of Geneva Lake Friendly Living series. This is the fourth video in a series that was started a few months ago through the Town of Geneva Green Committee. And this, very excited to bring you this webinar in conjunction with the City of Geneva Green Committee and our esteemed guest today representing Hobart and William Smith Colleges. Michael Amadori, the head of sustainability from Hobart and William Smith Colleges, and a EV electric vehicle owner himself. So I'm really excited to hear his perspective. So he's going to really, lead this charge, and then I'm going to fill in with any information, and hopefully watch the chat for any questions. And anyone feel free to, we're kind of a tight group here. But we do want to have a good flow for the recording. So, feel free to chime in if you have any questions, either in the chat box or just, flag us down. You can even raise your hand if you'd like. So I'll be on the lookout. So without further ado, Michael, you want to share your screen and get it going?
Yeah, I actually just clicked. It says host disabled screen sharing. So I might just need to enable that real quick for me.
Uh-oh.
So does anyone here have an electric car besides me?
I got it. You should be able to now. Okay. We got no, and I believe Raymond does. He sent me a very nice email about he has several vehicles and he's an avid EV enthusiast.
Yeah, I see the Tesla in his background there.
Yeah.
So, all right, are you guys able to see that then?
Yep, I can see it.
All right, so so basically today, just talking quickly over some electric vehicle car basics. It's some new terminology and things that people are not normally used to. Talked a little bit about battery range, some features such as one pedal driving, which is a standard in electric cars. Where to charge your EV here in Geneva, some apps that you might want to use, and just a brief, overview of some economics and tax incentives. So, the size of the battery for a car is measured in kilowatt hours. So that can be considered a gallon, right? So it's like the volume. So a battery in an electric car ranges between 40 to 100 kilowatt hours, depending on the make, model, and upgrades you have. That's generally the sizes going around right now. And when you're driving your car, you're pulling an instantaneous charge of a kilowatt. And that could go from down to 1 up to 80. So when I accelerate to get on the throughway, it's up towards 60, 70, 80 kilowatts I'm pulling. If I'm just sitting in the parking lot with, the air conditioning on, it's 1 or 2 kilowatts. This is something I just pulled off the internet from Inside EVs, just to kind of show you the current, makes and models of the EVs. And over here on the right-hand side, you can see battery size in kilowatt hours, and you can see the ranges there. And so I drive the Chevy Bolt. I have the 2019, so mine's only 60 kilowatt hours. It went up 10% to 66 in the new 2020 edition. But you can see, a lot of them are in the 90s. Teslas get up to 100. But yeah, so that's the going range. And then you can see on the right is the range. And the range is kind of variable, and I'll talk about that in a second. The car can drive on 1 kilowatt hour anywhere from 3 to 6 miles. And so on a small battery, if you only have a 40 kilowatt hour battery, before you need to charge, you could drive 120 to 240 miles. And then if you have a large battery, you could get anywhere from 300 to 600 miles of range with a large battery. You might be wondering, well, why is it such a large spread? That's a 100% difference, 3 miles to 6 miles. And there's a few factors that impact how far you can get with 1 kilowatt hour in your car. The big one is temperature. Hot and cold temperatures are going to reduce the range for 3 different reasons. One is just chemistry of batteries. Your battery performance will hold less charge when it's cold or when it's hot outside. 2, it's battery conditioning. So the Bolt, at least, and I think the Leaf and the Tesla do this as well. Even if my car's turned off overnight on a winter day, it will turn itself on, not fully, but it will kind of turn itself on auxiliary power, turn on the heat, and it will start to pump coolant that it's heated up through the battery system to keep the batteries from getting extremely cold. Or same thing, if your car is sitting in the sun, baking on a black parking lot, The car will turn itself on automatically when it senses the batteries are getting too hot, turn on the cooling system and pump cool coolant through your batteries to keep them at an optimal temperature, or at least within the range. And that uses your battery. So it uses the battery to warm or cool the battery. And then lastly with temperature is the accessories. The air conditioning and especially the heat will have a draw on the battery. So when you're driving, there's your expected ranges on the left-hand side. When I'm driving, at least in my car, sorry, and when I turn on the heat, I see my expected range drop as soon as I turn the heat on, because it's recognizing that it's sucking energy to heat the car. So those three factors for temperature impact it. And then the other big thing that impacts your range is the driving environment, like highways versus cities. And this is actually opposite of a gas car. An electric vehicle gets much better gas mileage on the city streets compared to the highway, where most in the gas car, you get better efficiency on the highway. And a big factor of that is one pedal driving. I'll show you a one pedal driving video in a second, but my car I've had for about a year, put 20,000 miles on it, mostly highway. So over the full year, my average is 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour. But in the wintertime, that's closer to 2.5. And in the summertime, it's closer to 4.5. So it's averaging around 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour. This is actually a picture of the inside of my car. You can see the bars here. This is the efficiency every 5 miles. So the last 5 miles I drove, I was getting around 6 miles per kilowatt hour. Then the previous 5 miles going back. And because I drive from Syracuse and this is just taking a day, so I was on the highway all day today coming into work. And I get off the highway driving the city of Geneva to get to Hobart and Marie Smith, and you can see I got better range. So that's kind of this. It's nice. It shows you real time where your efficiency is going. This is another feature. This shows you how much or where your electricity is going. 97% of my electricity was using for driving. And the accessories here, I guess, is like your blinkers, your lights, things like that. Your air conditioning and your heater are under, you can't really read this, that says climate control. That's 3% of my electricity. And it has not been hot enough today to use any battery conditioning. So you can see where your energy is getting used. So one of the best features about one pedal driving is reduction in air pollution, especially in urban environments. When you press the brakes, small amounts of particulate dust matter goes into the air and is a major source of air pollution. The American Lung Association talks about this, particulate pollution. There's a recent study came out showing that it might have harmful effects on your immune cells. It's similar as a diesel exhaust. So the brake dust, the particulates from your brakes, is a factor of air pollution, and that is dramatically reduced with one pedal driving. So what happens is, as I let off the gas, the kinetic energy of the car is captured and transformed into electrical energy that will charge the battery and stop the car. And so I made a little video of this. Let's see if we can get this working. Now, Jacob, can you still see, can you see that video at all?
I cannot see a video right now.
So let me just stop the share and show the share. Here we go. Show this. Share here.
See it.
And then I just want to make sure share computer sound. All right. So here we go. Of our one pedal driving in an electric car. You can see on the left hand side is the battery with 163 miles of range left. We're going 0 miles per hour. And on the right hand side is our energy being used, 2 kilowatts. That's to power the air conditioner currently. As I accelerate, that bar on the right is going to go up, showing a greater use of electricity. And then when I let my foot off the gas without pressing the brake, you'll notice it go down to charge the battery. So here we go. You can see as we're accelerating, we're using 20, 30, 35 kilowatts. I'll let off the gas, not pressing the brake at all, recouping much of that electricity, and it'll bring the car to a complete stop, and I never hit the gas or hit the brake pedal once. So you're able to hear the audio with that too?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so that was just a little demonstration in the parking lot here, and there was no cars around. I was driving safely with my phone recording. But yeah, you can saw as I was braking, the bar on the right-hand side went down, and that's an indication of electricity coming into the battery. And so that's how it works. And it charges it, it brings your car to a complete stop. I'll drive all over the place and I never need to hit my brakes. Once you're in that stopping position, you hit the parking brake and you can turn the car off and get out of the car. So let's see, back to the PowerPoint. Ooh. So charging your car. So a level 1 charger is considered your wall outlet. Most cars will come with an adapter, and I can plug my car from right from any wall outlet right into the car to charge it. Your charge is going to be 1 to 2 kilowatts from the wall outlet. So if your battery, like I said, my battery is a 60 kilowatt hour battery. If I need 15 kilowatt hours, and I'm going to get 1 or 2 kilowatts, that means I'm going to get, and I leave it for an hour, that means I either get 1 kilowatt hour or 2 kilowatt hours per hour. It's kind of weird to a kilowatt hour per hour, but that's how it works. And so to charge up that 15 kilowatt hours will take 7.5 to 15 hours. So overnight, you can leave it and you should have that charge. So it seems kind of slow and like a long time, but you figure you're getting 3 to 4 miles of range. Most people are within 40 miles of where they live to work. You can drive to work, drive back, plug it in. Most of the time when you get home, especially you cook dinner, you stay, and your car's parked in your driveway for 12 hours anyways. So it seems like a long time, but really your car is often parked in your driveway doing nothing. Plenty of time to charge it up. Level 2 chargers are the most common chargers that you see around town. They're about 6 to 7 kilowatts of charge when you're plugging it in. So if your battery needs 15 kilowatt hours, again, that will take 2 to 2.5 hours. And so pretty much every charger you see is a level 2 charger. There are some level 3 fast chargers. Those actually use direct current, and they're slowly becoming more popular. Actually, Jacob showed me today, right in the Finger Lakes Times, there's an article that we're supposed to be getting some fast chargers in the Seneca Street parking lot. So that will get you a charge of 20 to 30 kilowatts. So that 15 kilowatt hours will take, 30 to 15 minutes, I think that's supposed to say, or 30 to 15 minutes. So, in 15 minutes, you can charge a quarter of your battery. So charging your car in Geneva. So if you plug in at home, you're going to pay 15 to 20 cents a kilowatt hour. So if your battery is, if my battery is low, if I'm down 50 kilowatt hours, that's pretty much a full tank, almost a full tank. I say tank still. That would cost only around $7.50 to $10, depending on what you're paying for electricity at home to fill up your battery full. So it's pretty affordable compared to gas. It will take some time. I do have some videos now to show you of some stations around town, just so if people get a car and they're wondering where they can go to get charged, it'd be easy to see. Let me just hop on the Zoom here. Share screen. Let me just pull up this video. Hang on 1 second. Sorry about this. Share screen. Share. All right. Should be our stations. These are the charging stations at Hobart and William Smith in the parking lot of our Student Scanning Center. You can see both of the stations are ChargePoint. Each station has 2 charging ports. To activate the station, you do need the ChargePoint app. But all you do is put the app with your smartphone near the charging station. The port will unlock, and once it's unlocked, you can go ahead and plug it right into your car, as I have here. Our stations are free to use. If you're not a member of HWS, you just come in the after hours and you could charge your car. So that's the charging stations at Hobart and William Smith. So those are the, our stations right there. Like you said, we got 2 of them. That's the Scanning Center. So if you come into our campus onto Pulteney Street, take your first right. That'll bring you to this parking lot. Make a left once you're in the parking lot, and you'll see the 2 stations right there. We can go check out the Town of Geneva station. Here we are at the Town of Geneva charging station. You can see located as soon as you enter the parking lot here on the left-hand side, there is a charging station. This one is by EV Connect. There's 2 ports. You again, just see for reference right by the Highway Department building. So for this, you'd use the EV Connect app and you would scan the QR code there.
and you'd be able to plug in your car and charge it there. So that's the station in the town of Geneva.
And then the last one we'll watch is the visitor center.
Here we are at the Geneva Finger Lakes Visitor Center right here on the shores of Seneca Lake. There are 2 charging stations, one right here and the other one right there you can see currently in use. These stations, you don't need an app or anything to activate, which is good in one regard, but on the flip side, you can never see if they're occupied or not. So you can come here expecting to charge, and both of them can be in use. You just simply unplug it just like that. It's got a nice long cord, and for like the car, just open this up, connect it in there, and you'll see it. The car is currently drawing 1 watt, and now you can see it's getting 2, 3, and usually, like I said, they go up to around 6 or 7 for a level 2 charger. And there you can see the car is now charging. So that's how easy it is to charge your electric car, and you can do it right here for free, 24/7 at the Seneca Lake Visitor Center.
So screen share. So those are the stations right there. Like I say, there are all 3 different makes and models. We use ChargePoint. EV Connect was at the town, and EV Link was at the visitor center. I did mention that is an important point about the visitor center. It's really convenient that you don't need the app. You can just show up and charge. But if you're expecting to charge and they're occupied, you know, it's really nice going to a destination and looking in advance. Hey, I know when I get there, I'll be able to charge. There is a thing called range anxiety. It's a common feeling among EV drivers. It's less and less common as more charging stations come online. But you're afraid that you're going to go somewhere kind of far, and you need to access that charging station, right? If it, you know, one example is Letchworth State Park. There's 2 free charging stations there. My wife and I were going to go. We ended up taking her gas car because I was too afraid that if we got to Letchworth and the station was broken, or if they were both occupied, I would not been able to charge my car. Even though I had plenty of range to make it there, I wouldn't have enough to make it back again. And then, you know, that could have caused a lot of anxiety on the way out. There was another 2 stations in the Geneva City Hall parking lot. And as I mentioned, we're going to soon get fast chargers right in Seneca, or in the Seneca Street parking lot. And that was just in the FL Times today. So apps to use. So PlugShare is an app everyone should have if you have an EV car. This is interesting. It's all open source. Data is inputted by users only. So this is not affiliated with any company, no specific charging station or car manufacturer. It tracks all stations, every make and model. And it's all inputted by users. So some stations, so there's a restaurant by the mall in Syracuse where that station is not on their network station, but so I never would have known about it. But a user found it, put it on there, and you can access it and you can see where it is. And drivers are encouraged to check in. And so you could report it if it's working, or if you had a successful charge. Sometimes there's little things like, oh, you need to go around this bend. It looks like it's on the app. It looks like it's here. So there's little tips that you can leave other drivers so they can find the station, or you can report it if it's broken, so you can avoid the hassle of driving to a broken station. So PlugShare, so what does that look like? This is just some screenshots. Here on the left-hand side, you can see kind of more focused in on Geneva. You'll see that one is the town station. This is the HWS stations. Here's the visitor center, and here's the one downtown at the City Hall. Then on the right-hand side, I zoomed out, and you can see all the stations located in the Finger Lakes. The orange ones are the level 3 fast chargers. So those are an example of a fast charger where you can use the DC current, charge your car extremely quickly. But all the other ones here are level 2 chargers. And if you were to click on any of these icons, you'd get more information, pictures, and all sorts of updates. ChargePoint, these are the most common stations in public areas. Definitely the most common stations that I've ever seen compared to the other make and model. Like I said, you can see if someone's using it ahead of time. It's nice because as you're using it, it tracks how long you're charging, how much electricity you receive, and the price is set by the station owner. So ChargePoint has nothing to do with charging, or like the price of charging. So it's once you install the stations, the owner of that station can set the price. So what does that look like? Again, on the left-hand side, you'll see There's the 2 ones at City Hall. You'll notice the town station is not here, nor is the one at the visitor center, because they are not ChargePoint stations. So they wouldn't be located on the ChargePoint app. And the little blue means it's occupied, so 25%, so that looks like 1 station is occupied. Here down in Ithaca, you'll see there's 34 stations in this area. It looks like, I don't know, what is that, about 1/5 of them are occupied, and the rest of them are free. Here, there's 4 stations, 2 of them are occupied. So that's kind of how you can tell in advance if there's going to be room to park your car. Once your car is charging, you can pull it up and you'll see the little icon that it's going. It's, how many miles you've received. And this, this morning I plugged in at 10 a.m. and at around noon I took a screenshot and you can see the power went right up and gave me a constant 7 kilowatts of power to charge my car. So that's the ChargePoint. EV Connect, they're also pretty common. They're at a lot of state parks. The town has one. Similar, you can see if someone's using it or not. It tracks how much electricity, price is set by the owner. Real similar to ChargePoint. This is the EV Connect app, but you see the number of stations, right? ChargePoint had 30 some down in Ithaca. EV Connect has 7, but they're, around as well. And the same thing, you can see if it's occupied or not occupied. With these ones, you bring your phone close to the QR code right there. And as soon as the phone scans the QR code, the station information will pop up, and then you can click the button to begin the charge. Here, the town has the price set at 75 cents a kilowatt hour, which I told Jacob might be a little bit on the high side. So maybe talk to the town about that. So Electrify America, they are really, as of right now, the only company putting in level 3 stations. It's all they put in is level 3 charging stations located along key transportation corridors. So here you see, I'm zoomed out quite far, but you can see there's one in Buffalo. This one's at the Waterloo outlets. This is over by Turning Stone Casino. Here you are in Albany. So the way these work, like I said, they're not as common or as frequent, but if you want to drive from Buffalo to Albany, so on my car, I don't have enough charge on a single charge to make it from Buffalo to Albany. But knowing that there's a level 3 charger, I can get to Waterloo and within an hour and a half, have a completely full battery and then make my way all the way to Albany. So that's why they put them in these key areas to allow for long distance travels, and they put them in locations where there's other things to do, such as shopping or gambling or things like that. Similar benefits, you can see if it's occupied or not, it tracks the information, price is sent by the owner. So yeah, so the last thing I want to talk about is just a little bit of economics, so not too much more information here. One, the NYSERDA rebate. So if you buy an electric car, there's a $2,000 rebate available. And this is nothing you have to wait to claim on your taxes. You go to the dealership. Once you buy a car, they will just take $2 grand off the price. They do all of the work to get the $2,000. They get the rebate. So they just knock $2 grand off your price, or they give you the rebate, I guess, ahead of time. They submit the paperwork to NYSERDA, and they'll get the $2,000. So that's the state incentive, and it's any electric car that you buy, no matter what, in New York State has a $2,000 rebate associated. The federal tax incentive is a little bit more complicated. It's a phased out approach that depends on how many vehicles of a specific model have been sold. So for a full electric vehicle, and it's different values, similar thing where it's a phased out approach, but it's different values if it's a hybrid or a partial electric vehicle with gas. But with a full electric vehicle, the tax incentive is $7,500. And then after it sells, so many vehicles are sold, the rebate's cut in half. And after so many vehicles are sold again, it's cut in half one more time, and then it goes away. So clicking this link, let me just pop and share my, so here you can see the great website here, fueleconomy.gov, and you can scroll down and see, so if you want to get an Audi, if you want to get the 2020 e-tron Sportback, there's still a $7,500 rebate tax incentive available. You can see here's the plug-in hybrids. That rebate's less. So all these different makes and models of all the different electric cars. Then here you come down to like the Chevy Bolt. So the $7,500 one ended in March 2019. Then from April to September of 2019, you could get $3,750. And then if you don't own an electric Bolt by now, because in March 31st, the incentive ended. It sold enough vehicles where now if you buy a Bolt, you get no federal tax incentive at all. So it's based on the make and model. And, you know, you can go right down, you can see all the Fords, you know, they're still all available. The only other one that it's sold out for is down here at the bottom is the Teslas. The Teslas are also, they've sold too many of those, so there's no rebate on those. But, you know, all these other Toyota hybrids and stuff, those are still available. So the last few things. So some of the perks. So compared to it, I have on the top an ICE car. So ICE is an acronym. There's all sorts of EV lingo once you get in the community. ICE is an internal combustion engine. So if you go on some of the message boards, if someone with an internal combustion engine, it's common that they park in charging spots because it's often empty, and they're like, oh, I'm just going to park there. It was, you know, and so then if you go to charge your car and there's a car that you say you've been iced, which is like the lingo people say. But yeah, so that's an internal combustion engine. And what you never have to do with an electric car is ever get an oil change. So I've gotten 20,000 miles on my car, never paid a dime for an oil change. And you never have to worry about a leaking transmission fluid or power steering fluid because there is no transmission fluid or power steering fluid. So there's all sorts of things that were often, especially in upstate New York, I've had all three things: my oil leak, transmission leak, power steering leak over the course of my 20 years of driving. And so I know that it happens to cars. You'll never have to worry about that with an electric car. The only fluids that are in a car are coolant and brake fluid. Those are the only two fluids that are in the car that you have to worry about. The brakes and rotors last a lot longer. Again, 20,000 miles, I just took it in for a checkup. My brake pads are still almost as full from when I got them because I'm very rarely braking. I'm always just using the one pedal driving.
What about blinker fluid?
Blinker fluid is, I mean, I think all of the blinkers are done with electrical signals.
Or maybe thinking about wiper fluid, maybe. Or...
Oh, windshield wiper fluid. I guess, yes, that would be another fluid that would be in, right, that is true. I guess I skipped over that one. Forgot about that one. There is still windshield wiper fluid that you would have to fill up just like a regular car. So yes, thank you. Good catch on that, Jacob. And then lastly, I did a quick little price comparison. So if you're getting 30 miles to the gallon with, you know, with a car, and you're paying $2 for a gallon for gas, that means you're paying 6.7 cents a mile to drive. But if you're getting 4 miles a kilowatt hour with an electric car, charging at 15 cents a kilowatt hour, which is, you know, going right at home what you're paying, your price is almost half of that at 3.8 cents a mile. So even though sometimes the upfront cost can be a little bit higher with an EV car, if you combine in the tax incentive from NYSERDA, the federal incentive if it's still available, and the lifespan or the lifetime cost of the car, it's actually oftentimes more economical to own the electric car instead of the gas car. So that's my little update on the electric cars in the Geneva area. And you know, if there's any questions or comments, you know, feel free to open the floor, I guess.
Michael, thank you so much for this conversation. And I have a few questions, but I'll leave it open to anyone else if they have anyone. And I just want to say that was Irvin Costa here with the blinker fluid. It was a joke. Oh. He's talking about a joke that mechanics play. So I mean, this is, you know, an incredible conversation about how it changes how we think about cars.
Yeah. Absolutely. The way, and there are some, I didn't get into the whole, you know, I didn't go into the lifetime, like energy, you know, what do they call it? Like embodied energy, because the batteries, there are some issues at the end of an electric car's life. What do you do with all of these lithium ion batteries? There's currently not a good system in place in the country to, you know, in 5-10 years as all these EV cars start getting turned in and people want the newer models. What do we do with all these batteries? Some of the precious metals that are used to harvest the batteries. So there are certain drawbacks, you know, environmental drawbacks. I didn't get into that whole conversation. But, you know, I think for the most part, is 100% EV the way to go in a society? I don't know. but definitely more than the 2% is now, right? We should definitely be closer to 25 or 30%, in my opinion, of electric vehicles, or even closer to 50%, I think would be a lot better for society, and, a lot less gas would be consumed.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating conversation. I mean, you bring up things like the dust particles from ICE electric, from combustion cars, and that's one thing that most people don't think about. We just think about the gas combusting and that in greenhouse gas output, but we don't think about the leaking power steering and the leaking oil and all of these different things. So it's a really fascinating conversation. And you mentioned that point about the EV anxiety, and that was really interesting to me. And it's so how many miles can your car go? Do you know? Like,
yeah, so like I said, so I have a 60 kilowatt hour battery. And I've been getting 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour. That's like my lifetime average. So, if I do 60 times 3.5, that's right around 210 miles of range. But oftentimes I don't want to drive to a destination 200 miles away, because then it's like, that's pushing it, and if I happen to be using a little bit more heat or air conditioning, I might only be getting 190 miles of range. So really when it's 210, that's the range. I mean, you could drive 210 miles before the battery dies, but you really want to go maybe 150, 160 to allow for that. Like I said, then I could use the air conditioning and not feel any, I want to be comfortable, or I use the heat. There have been times in the winter when I turn the heat off and I bundle up and, I stay warm just with I got my ski jacket on because I'm driving and I don't want to use the heat in the car because my destination is a little bit further away and I'm just kind of concerned that I might run out of battery. But so I could get 200 miles of range, but like I said, 150 to 180 is what I feel more comfortable with. 150 in the winter time, 180 in the summertime when there's not demands. Winter is the real big one for reducing your range, more so than the summertime.
Yeah, well, it really feels like if you can time it correctly, it can be very cost effective. And you got into economics a little bit there. Do you kind of have an understanding for if you're able to time it well, kind of the ROI, the return on investment, based on saved gas, saved oil changes, all of those things? Like, how many miles do you need to go before the car kind of equals itself out, and how that relates to when people are thinking about purchasing an electric vehicle versus an ICE vehicle?
Yeah, I guess it would depend a little bit on, you get like a brand new gas car that's kind of on the cheaper side for like 18 grand, right? So they're pretty cheap. But if you're looking at a nice new all gas Honda Accord, for instance, looking at a new Honda Accord versus the Chevy Bolt, they're probably pretty comparable in price. So that's where you would want to consider making the jump to electric, because then so that's where it would depend on if your price range is kind of, if you're looking at a cheaper car, you might never go for the gas. But if you're looking at a more expensive gas car, you really should consider electric. I don't know the exact price. There's a lot of variables there because it depends on are you paying for electricity or not? So for me, I will charge at home, and I've paid for electricity, but most of the time I'm charging on campus for free. So my payback was going to be a lot quicker driving, because I drive from Syracuse to Geneva every day. I was spending a lot of money on gas, and that just went away to next to nothing. So versus if your commute's only a few miles, so I would also say a further commute is a better payback. So if you're driving 2 miles to work every day and 2 miles home, you're not putting a lot of miles on your car. So, you're not going to need as many oil changes. At 20,000 miles, I probably have gotten 3 or 4 oil changes by now. Those were like $80 a piece. So, you're looking at right there, a couple $100 that I've saved. So, so if you live a little bit further away and you have a little bit of a longer commute, the electric car has a better payback period than if you're living really close to your destination.
Yeah, that's a great, thought. And especially if you, wherever you're working, or wherever the city is. I mean, it seems as though those City of Geneva free charging stations are an incredible opportunity at the moment, and I wonder, how much longer it's going to stay that way.
Yeah, that's a good point, because it's not just Geneva. There actually are free stations quite a lot of places. On the apps, you can often search for certain settings, and you could say, show me only free stations. And there's free stations in Syracuse, but there's also pay stations, and there's a lot of free stations. And I think it's not always going to be that way. Even we've talked about it. We got a NYSERDA grant to help put in our stations. So we don't have to keep them free, but because the grant paid for most of them, we want to keep it free for a while. But maybe after 4 or 5 years, if they're always being used, maybe we start charging at least the cost of electricity to recoup some of those costs. But yes, I think that as more and more people drive electric cars, you'll probably see fewer and fewer free charging stations. Now, some businesses do it, like there's a grocery store in Syracuse. They have the free charging station, I think, as an incentive to get, if I'm going to drive to a store, I might as well drive to the one that's going to be charging my car for free. So, some businesses offer free charging as a, it's an incentive for them to come to shop at their stores or shop at their restaurants because, hey, come to our restaurant and eat and you can charge for free. So, it depends on the business and the location, but I think, like I said, there's more free charging stations, I say, than paid ones right now, and that will change over time.
Yeah, and as you mentioned earlier, those stations coming into Geneva and the Seneca Street parking lot will be really interesting as a potential, economic development opportunity. It's like, are there people that are going to come to Geneva instead of another place, so they can charge their station, walk around for 30 minutes or so. And so, well, that was an incredible presentation, Michael. I was asking questions. I was writing down questions along the way, and you kept answering them. So I kept having to come up with new ones. And I really appreciate, and there's a lot, that goes into it that, I had no idea. I don't own an electric vehicle, but, it really makes a lot of sense. And, this was incredibly good. You really gave us a lot of information. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it took a little bit driving it to kind of understand all the ins and outs and, kilowatt hours, how that all works. And it's, kilowatt hours per hour kind of thing. But the more you kind of use it, it just kind of becomes, I don't know, all of a sudden I just started understanding it and it just made sense to me. It just clicks, right? So in the beginning, it's definitely a little confusing, but as you drive around more and use the cars more, I think it's going to become more and more kind of an easier thing to understand.
Yeah, it'll be interesting as, trucks start coming out and we start seeing them in different environments. That's something that I'm interested in. I need to haul around a lot of material. And so, electric vehicles, besides the Tesla truck, I guess, is not as much of an option. So, I'm curious to see how those things play out. And then especially as you highlighted that map, there's a lot of charging stations in the urban areas, but there's not a lot in the rural areas. So, I would be pretty nervous driving down to, Romulus or so, and driving around too much in Romulus in the heat with your electric vehicle if you wouldn't be able to make it back. And, how does that relate to a conversation about access? And so, all of this is really interesting, important, and, more important. That's why we thought as the town of Geneva, we're kind of rural. We're kind of urban, but we're also rural. And so we put that charging station in, as an opportunity for our community on that side of town. But, I could imagine there's a lot of space to cover from that map that you showed. So I got 2 questions here. Is it cheaper to charge at night in Geneva at home? ? And do NYSEG rates change?
So if you have, most of the time, so if you're talking at home, your rate for electricity will stay the same. Unless you're a really big electrical consumer, the utility is not offering you variable pricing on using more electricity at night. They're trying to switch the load, right? Switch that peak load. The Hobart William Smith, for example, we're not participating in it, but I think we could choose to try to use more electricity at night instead of during the day, try to save some money. Or, but as of right now, for a residential home, you're paying the same price per kilowatt hour, no matter if you charge during the day or at night. Big users, why we don't pay less at night, if we use during the peak hours, we will pay a peak charge. So there is a charge to use during the peak time. So that's that question. And then the other one was?
The other one was, how much does a level 2 charger installation cost?
So level 2 charger installation, if you're buying at home, if you're buying a charging station, it'll probably run around $1,500. And then you're gonna have to pay an electrician around $1,000 to put it up. Although I see Raymond shaking his head, maybe he has other information. I don't have a level 2 at my house. I just plug into the wall. But like the ChargePoint stations that we have at school, those are around $4,000 stations. But they give you all the data and all the access. I can control usage. I can charge people. I can see when and who's using it. They're designed to be in the elements. But if you're getting a level 2 in your garage, you want to speak to that, Raymond?
Okay, just to comment on that, I have a Clipper Creek level 2 charger. On my Tesla Model 3, I can get 16 to 17 miles gain per hour on it. It tells me amps usage. Okay, it's about 1 mile per hour per amp draw, and that charger now, that I've had that for about 5 years now, that was only about $300.
Oh wow!
I had the wiring already in. Tesla, an actual Tesla charger from the factory, I believe is $400. Now, yes, you've got to have number 10 cable. You've got to have things. So I think there are some simpler solutions. My electric, for the last 3 cars I've had, which were 2 of them hybrid and the one full, a lot of it came from the roof of my house. I got 18 solar panels up there. So it's not an expensive car to drive. Of course, I've been using that electric for other things, but I think you can find some solutions for at home that are very, very cost effective. Okay.
Yeah, and you mentioned the point too, that you have the wiring there. So if you have, and most of the time they run on 220, like the same voltage that you would need for like your washer or dryer if you have an electric dryer. So if you have a 220 line in your garage, and you can put a station right next to it, it probably, it seems like the charging station's only a couple $100. And then you're right, if you have 220 at home, as Irvin says, right, you could get an electrician to put it in for a lot more affordable than what I was quoting. I don't have a level 2. I plug into the wall outlet in my house and just get a slow trickle charge when I need some, or I drive, I live right in the city of Syracuse, so I have some charging stations real close by. I sometimes I drive my car there and then I bike back or I take the bus back. So, I live close enough to do that. But if you're out here, like Jacob mentioned, more rural settings, you don't have that ability. So putting a station in your house is a lot more, makes a lot more sense. And it seems like you can get the whole station and install for about $1,000, station and installation, especially if you already have 220 and the 220 is close to where you're parking your car.
And the cars, all the electric cars do come in with a plug charger with them. Okay. But again, that's that 1 mile in an hour. You're going to,
Yeah.
I know the Tesla does come with a plug that goes into the 240 thing, which is 4, 5, 6 miles in an hour you're going to get out of it. But again, the cost, considering the savings and everything, really, there's some ways that you can get it done fairly inexpensively, all told. And I love the electric car. The Tesla.
Love driving mine too.
Awesome.
Yeah, I wanted the Tesla. I couldn't quite come up with the cash for it, but I do love the Bolt. It's like it's got all the bells and whistles. It's got the lane keep assist, the heating steering wheel. I love the way it drives. I love the car too. It's like the AC is cold instantly, the heat is hot instantly. It's a nice ride.
You're driving a Volt?
A Bolt with a B.
Oh, the Bolt. Okay. My last car was a Chevy Volt, And it was really cool because there's nothing except the Tesla Roadster and the Model S that is out there that can take it for the first 800 foot. Gone.
Oh, right. The Volt has good
That
pickup.
was
Yeah.
fun when I was challenged a couple times. I don't do that very often.
They are quick. That's another thing I noticed too. Like my wife has an HRV, a little like Honda SUV kind of thing. And when we're on the thruway and she gasses it, like it's like a 5,000 RPMs and we're creeping.
Yeah.
With mine, when I punch it, like I get pushed back in the seat. Like I got very good pickup. It's a little bit more sporty. People think the electric cars are slower, but they're not.
The Model 3 is the dog of the family, the one I've got. It's two-wheel drive. Okay, it takes 5 seconds to go 0 to 60.
That's quick.
And yeah, it's quite a thrill. It'll keep that up to 130. No, I haven't done that. But people don't realize the torque and the acceleration from electric is so much. It's torque that gives you acceleration, not horsepower.
Okay.
Do that silently. It is just so cool. So I'll shut up.
Really appreciate it, Raymond. It's so great to have, an intimate setting here to really discuss. We had another question here from Irvin. What if you don't buy new? Good used values around 10K out there?
Well, if you're going all electric, used cars are really a Tesla or a Bolt, and the Bolts are only 2018. Because there's a lot of hybrids like the Chevy Volt with a V that's been around almost 10 years, and that's a hybrid. It's a decent sized battery. I mean, I think you get around 60 miles with it, so it's a pretty big hybrid battery. Like I looked at the Ford Fusion before I bought the Bolt as a hybrid option, and the battery was like 20 miles, and it was just like, it's so small, and you still have gas, you still have all the fluids, so it didn't have all the perks of a true all electric. So I'm not a huge fan of the hybrids. The Volt with a V though is a really good one. But a used fully electric car, I guess the Nissan Leaf is one, a used Tesla or a used Bolt would be really your only 3 options. I think you can 10, maybe not. I think they'd be closer to 15 for a used one because they're not that old. Because you not like you can find them that are 5 or 6 years old. They're only talking about 2 or 3 years old. So, and you don't get the tax incentives with a used car either. So, because I was actually looking at a used Bolt as well, and then when I saw, my car was originally, I forget what I ended up paying only $27,000 for it. So it was like, sticker price was like 40. So because you got like the, $2,000 from NYSERDA, Chevy had all these deals because they were trying to get, it was the end of the year. The dealership had way too many Bolts, so they had a bunch of deals. And then I got the tax incentive, which was almost $4,000. So it dropped my sticker price down, my total price down to only about 27. And the used car I was looking at was 22. So, and this was a year ago. So maybe that used car would be, 17 or 18 now instead of 22, but $10,000 seems a little bit, I would think, tough to find right now.
Man, so much good information. Yeah, and that'll be something of the future. Will be the used electric vehicles, and now you guys are wealths of information now, and there's going to be so much that's going to happen in the next 10, 20 years. Well, we're coming up almost at an hour. We got 51 minutes. So if anyone doesn't have any questions or any statements to say, just like to really thank Michael. Incredible presentation. Really gave us a lot. Appreciate Raymond, appreciate your feedback and comments. Irvin, really appreciated the questions. And Connie, thanks so much for listening. We're going to have this available as a recording on the Town of Geneva website, so it can be shared around. So that should be coming up sometime this week or early next week. So look out for that. And I really appreciate everyone taking the time. And Michael, thank you so much.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for having me. I'm happy that people found it useful and we're pushing the EV movement forward. So you can always feel free to reach me, Amadori at hws.edu, and I'm happy to explain anything more in detail.
Well, thanks so much. I think let's sign off now and have a great evening, everyone.
All right, great. Thank you, Jacob. Have a good night.